Hi, I'm Lee, and welcome to my sewing room. So far, I'm right on schedule with my Make 6 Quilts challenge. I finished my second quilt early in March. Once again, I used a pattern from Fabric Cafe's 3-yard quilt collection. These quilts are really perfect for charity quilts because they make up so quickly. Let me show you how easy it is to make a 3-yard quilt. For my second quilt, I selected the Brick Street quilt from Fast and Fun 3-yard quilts. Using the Fabric Cafe 3-yard quilt method, you only need 3 1-yard cuts of fabric to make the quilt top. You also need backing fabric. Rather than selecting the 3 fabrics myself, I got a 3-yard quilt fabric bundle. The coordinating fabrics were selected and packaged by the staff at the local fabric store. The instructions require you to identify a focus fabric for fabric number 1, and from the remaining fabrics, the lighter fabric is fabric number 2, and the darker one is fabric number 3. In my bundle, the plum fabric is the focus fabric, the light green is number 2, and the blue background is number 3. I chose this mint green for the quilt backing. I think it coordinates pretty well with the other 3 fabrics. The authors recommend that you keep the pieces organized as you cut by storing them in Ziploc bags and labeling the bags. This did prove to be very helpful as I was assembling the blocks. There are specific cutting directions that you need to follow to make sure you get all the pieces you need from the 1-yard cuts of fabric. I cut and labeled each of the 3 fabrics as directed. When everything was cut and labeled, it was time to start sewing. The directions in 3-yard quilts are very easy to follow. In this quilt, as is the case in most of the 3-yard quilts, you sew the pieces together to make strip sets. Then you cut the strip sets apart to make the blocks. When all the components were cut, I followed the assembly layout and arranged them on the flannel sheet I call my design wall. I attached the borders, made my quilt sandwich, and pin basted everything together. For quilting, I decided to try something new. I found a decorative stitch to use instead of my usual stitch in the ditch quilting. I used the seam guide to place the lines of quilting evenly. The decorative stitch didn't make a lot of difference, but it was fun to experiment. One weakness in this 3-yard quilt method, I think, is the binding. The authors call it economy binding, and it's made from 1 1/4 inch wide strips. This economy binding works okay if you want to finish the binding by hand, but I wanted to use the machine this time. The binding is so narrow, it barely covers the machine stitching used to attach it. You don't have a lot of extra fabric to play with, so it might be difficult to cut the binding wider than the 1 1/4 inch measurement. The next time, I'll probably follow the directions and finish the binding by hand. quilt number 2 of my Make 6 Quilts challenge is finished, and it's on its way to Project Linus. Most of my quilts will be donated to Project Linus. These lap-size quilts are perfect for this purpose, although the booklets do include instructions for enlarging the quilts. My local Bernina dealer is a drop-off point for this charity, so it's easy for me to drop off a finished quilt and buy fabric for the next quilt. I'll include a link to Project Linus in the description below. Thanks for watching.